He doesn't get it. He just doesn't get it. Well, you know what? That's not necessarily true because Derek Carr is too smart not to understand. He just doesn't care. There are two types of people. There are people who are willing to work hard, people who are willing to do the extras, people who are willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done. Then there's people who only want to do the bare minimum, people who will do just enough to get by. Donnie Carr falls into the latter. And you don't take my word for it. Just look at his career in the NFL. Donnie is the definition of average, mediocre. And if that's not enough proof, look at what happened this past week in New Orleans, or what didn't happen. Throughout the week this week, I saw damn near every current and former Saints player that I could think of. Marcus Colston, Pierre Thomas, Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston, dude was having the time of his life. The great one, the face of the franchise, even though he hadn't played in 4 years, Drew Brees. Sean Payton came down. Hell, I even saw Mickey Loomis. As critical as I have been of Mickey Loomis, I will never take away from the fact that Mickey Loomis represents the city. And that's what this past week was all about, representing New Orleans. I have my complaints about New Orleans. Once you have been down Bourbon Street several hundred times, it kind of loses its appeal. But there's just no denying the fact that New Orleans is a very special city. When the Saints are competitive, when the Saints are good, there is no other feeling like the feeling you get in New Orleans on game day. It's indescribable. You just have to be there. Everyone who was in the city this past week, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But you know who doesn't know? Donnie Carr. There was a conspicuous absence in New Orleans this week, a very noticeable absence. The so-called franchise quarterback, the supposed face of the franchise. The dude who could have flown in and stayed for free. Everything would have been free. Free food, free drinks, free transportation. All Derek Carr had to do was show up. And this asshole couldn't be bothered. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. If you happen to stumble upon this video, be sure to check out my main channel, Behind the Line. I'll be reviewing the Super Bowl this morning on the main channel, so links in the description below. Me personally, I was done with Donnie Carr after the 2023 season. It took me 4, maybe 5 months to figure out this dude ain't got it. I was damn sure done with Donnie after this past season. But believe it or not, there were still a lot of people in New Orleans who were willing to support Derek Carr. After his noticeable absence this past week, that is no longer the case. There is no coming back from this. This fan base will never, and I mean never, support Derek Carr. Let me tell you something about New Orleans. Matter of fact, Drew Brees told this same thing to Zion Williamson when he arrived in 2019. This city will love you almost unconditionally. Hell, you don't even have to be a star. Go look at the Pelicans, a franchise that is known for falling in love with role players. If the Pelicans traded Herb Jones, the fan base, the city, would revolt. Hell, the damn city gave Herb Jones his own day. Herb Jones, a second-round draft pick, someone who might score 20 points in a game once in a season. Herb Jones is the definition of a role player. He will never be a star, but the city loves him. Why? Because Herb Jones loves the city. New Orleans will embrace you. New Orleans will take care of you. They will be patient with you, oftentimes to their own detriment. But the one thing the city will not tolerate is being disrespected. Throughout his time with the Saints, Donnie Carr has consistently disrespected New Orleans. As patient as this city can be, once they're done with you, they're done. There is no coming back. If you don't believe me, go ask Anthony Davis. Tony! Go ask Chris Paul. And I feel bad for Chris Paul because he didn't really want to leave. he was in a situation where he had to leave. He really had no choice. It's been almost 15 years, and the city has never forgiven Chris Paul. Every time he plays in New Orleans, Chris Paul is booed every time he touches the ball. I know the salary cap hit is massive. I know taking the hit is essentially punting the 2025 season, but Saints are not going to win this season anyway. I don't care what it takes. I don't care how much it costs. You have got to cut Derek Carr. He doesn't want to be here, and the fan base damn sure doesn't want him here. Derek Carr is the classic case of doing just enough to get by. When Drew Brees was playing, I used to hear stories all the time of Drew Brees staying after practice. Sean Payton would be leaving the practice facility, and Drew Brees would be on the field by himself. He is dropping back. He's pretending to throw passes. He's calling audibles at the pretend line of scrimmage. Sean Payton asked him, "What the hell are you doing?" Drew Brees said, "I'm simulating the game in my imagination." Sean Payton said, "All right, well, what's the score?" Drew Brees said, "We're up 10-3 in the second quarter." You know, there are 17 Sundays every year where I find myself missing Drew Brees. Like Donnie Carr, Drew Brees, he didn't want to be in New Orleans. Who can blame him? When he arrived in 2006, the city was a damn war zone. It was a disaster. But Drew Brees embraced it. Drew Brees found a way to turn a negative into a positive. He gave hope to a city, a region that desperately needed it. As a result, the city, the entire region, adopted him. Drew Brees will never be without a home because he will always have a home in New Orleans and on the Gulf Coast. And look, you don't have to win playoff games. You don't have to win Super Bowls for the city to embrace you. Ask anyone in New Orleans what they think about Jameis Winston. Dude barely got on the field, yet somehow he's one of the faces of the city. Donnie Carr will never be forgiven for what happened this past week. Absolutely no reason for Donnie to be here next year. But give me your thoughts on this. Has Derek Carr officially burned the bridge in New Orleans? Was it inexcusable for him to no-show Super Bowl week in supposedly his home city? Let me know. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys on the main channel.